This is the first time I've been alone as a physician. We're all together alone here.
Barely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the coronavirus. The WHO failed in this basic duty and must be held accountable.
Uncle Bernie! People, we got Uncle Bernie in my life. Uncle Bernie, how you doing?
Who would have thought? The Uncle Bernie takes me out. Like, I ugly cackle every single time. Cardi B, Senator Bernie Sanders, giving us the collab that we need right now. She featured him on her Instagram Live, and they talked about a lot, actually. Coronavirus, they talked about the economy and the president. We're going to get to a little bit more of what's trending in just a second, but I wanted to be the first to welcome you to LX News, along with my partner in news, Nick Z here. You may know us from our social media or our website. We post stories all the time. We like to get to the human angle and the context of every single story we tell, but we also have fun. You'll get to know us a little bit. Nick, we had to do this by any means necessary. We didn't really plan to do it from our kitchen or empty apartment, but we're doing it, Nick, and I don't know, it feels kind of good. I like this.
Hey, feels good, looks good, why not? Let's jump right into it, and we're going to start off with LXT, where we break down what's trending for you guys. Our first story for today, President Donald Trump says the U.S. is cutting funding to the World Health Organization. Now, he's blaming the agency for making the corona crisis even worse. He accused the WHO of severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the virus. Now, the U.S. is the organization's largest sponsor by far. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, the president's critics, however, say he's just shifting blame to the organization. Ashley?
Well, Nick, today should have been tax day. Instead, it's been moved to July 15th. But instead, people are just getting stimulus checks, which I don't think is too bad of a trade-off. 80 million people expecting money if you're getting a paper check. The president's own signature will actually be on it. Now, the IRS says if you haven't received your money, you can go to a website it created to check the status. You can also change your address, and you can set up direct deposit if you would rather get the money earlier and not get a paper check. Nick, I honestly didn't know if I had gotten the money until I checked my account because of everybody on Twitter. I honestly would have forgotten to check.
Right, and for our third LXT and final LXT story in this segment, let's take a look real quick at what people are talking about on Twitter. First up, this tweet from Devon Lee 17. Watching everyone else get their stimulus checks today. That was me.
Yeah, and then someone said, me, a dependent, watching everyone getting their stimulus check. I mean, honestly, don't rush it. Like, being a dependent was great, so just ride it out, okay? You can miss one check, Nick. That's how I feel, at least.
Yeah, very, very true. And the last one, hashtag stimulus check, finally came through. Probably very excited as Cardi B when she saw Bernie Sanders on the line. Uncle Bernie!
I didn't know you were going to do that. You're trying to make me ugly snort, and I refuse to do it. But thank you for doing that, because now I'm going to have the gift of the century. Anyway, moving on, as you can see by Nick's erratic behavior, we are getting stir crazy inside. The social distancing has been a lot for everyone. But, Nick, first of all, I don't know if I have to ask, but you've been talking to your plants, so how are you doing being inside?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's the same old. Like you said, talking to my plant. Well, my plant has a name. That's Viviana. Thank you for asking. But no, I mean,
Sorry, respect her. I forgot.
Yeah, always got to respect Viviana. But, you know, same old stuff here. I'm talking to my plants. I'm hanging out at home. So not much has changed for me. How are you holding up?
You know, I'm okay. I don't have plans to talk to, so I just sit here and talk to you. So that's how it goes. But believe it or not, I don't know that I would have chosen this life. Yeah, lucky me. Yeah, we'll all figure out how lucky I am. How about that? A lot of people, believe it or not, are actually choosing to self-isolate, doing it voluntarily. One woman spent a year in isolation. She is working on a simulated mission on Mars, and she was isolated from the rest of the world.
I chose to go into isolation and confinement with 5 other people, and I was trained to do that. And your mission to save yourself and stay healthy and help save the human race is extremely important. So I know you didn't choose it, but thank you for being on this mission.
Hey, welcome back to Simulated Mars. So this is the airlock. This is where we go to put on our spacesuits, or spacesuits, depends on which style we're wearing on that particular day, before we go on EVA, which is through that door.
I'm a rehabilitation physician and a simulated astronaut. Practice going to Mars. We ran simulations like this before we went to the moon. We ran simulations like this before we went to Skylab. We ran simulations like this before we went to the International Space Station. So simulations usually, always, at least to date, precede actual missions. And the dome, which is about 1,200 square feet, not really of usable space. It's a 2-story dome with a big rig trailer attached where we kept all of our supplies and our power conversion equipment.
These are our nice white spacesuits with the big bowl helmets. When you put water in them, they're really heavy. Not as heavy as a real spacesuit, but heavy.
We were definitely isolated from the rest of the human race. We saw no one else for that 366 days and only spoke to other people with a 20-minute time delay or over email video chat like we are now, but very delayed. People are the most precious thing in the universe. I couldn't have survived without my crewmates, and also knowing that all of Earth was waiting for us when we got back, even when times got tough. Just telling her about a regular day, things that were normal. I was trying to kind of orient her by walking her around the dome, showing her my crewmates, describing what a day was like. Goodbye, I love you.
So I'm here in Hawaii on the Hawaii Space Exploration analog simulation to discover what it's like to be a space doctor. This is the first time I've been alone as a physician. Here it's just me. And similarly for MJ, the engineer, he's the only engineer on Mars, and Carmel's the only soil scientist on Mars, and Tristan is the only architect on Mars, and so it goes. Cyprian is the only astrobiologist. We're all together alone here.
Habcom, DM. Habcom, DM. We copy. Roxanne log. Going outside with us. Hatches open.
I mean, that's the strange thing about being in space is, maybe you're not physically there, but anyone who's ever gone to summer camp or college or away to another city on business knows that missing things is also relative. And so we would record ourselves having dinner.
Who the hell is that? Did we get a 7th crew member in the dome? You mean the one with short hair? Yeah.
Or record ourselves celebrating and send it back to our families. And for the holidays, Hanukkah and Christmas, our families recorded themselves and sent them back to us. So we were able to be there, just virtually different, a little bit like how we're all living now. The biggest difference is that I chose to go into isolation and confinement with 5 other people, and I was trained to do that. And you all didn't choose it. I'm sorry. It's one thing to try to be an astronaut. It's another thing to be an accidental astronaut. If you didn't sign up for the mission, That's not fair. It's also really important. Our work was important, and your work right now, your mission to save yourself and stay healthy and help save the human race is extremely important. So I know you didn't choose it, but thank you for being on this mission and joining me in this mission. We don't get to do this very often. All over the world, all over the country, regardless of who you are, what you believe, what you do, this scale of joint venture is the kind of thing that will be required to actually become an interplanetary species. We're all going to have to do a thing together and agree to do that thing, agree on the terms, talk about the hardships and the cost and whether or not we think it's worth it. The same kind of conversations we're having now, though I hope we're doing it because we're choosing to do it. I hope we're not forced to do it the way we are now.
And that is about it. We keep it pretty simple up here in Eskimos.
First of all, her positivity, out of this world, no pun intended, not to make a Nick Z joke, but I love that she called what we're doing our quarantine, that she called that a mission, because it is really important. It just reminds us how important all of this is, even if we're going a little stir crazy. That story was by our storyteller, Cody Broadway. He's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you want to see more of his work at Cody Broadway, or of course you can watch all of our stories on those same social media platforms at NBCLX. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Ashley. Now, NBCLX has been exploring different ripple effects of the coronavirus pandemic. And so this next segment we are going to call The Ripple, fittingly. Now, this global shutdown has affected many different businesses. And one business that can't temporarily just go into hibernation like a bar or a restaurant, for example, is a zoo. One crazy headline from Germany this week goes like this: last resort, feed animals to each other. So apparently that zoo is so desperate that they're thinking and planning on how to make sure that these animals survive. Well, they might have to feed some animals to others. Well, we wondered what's happening here in our zoos here in the U.S. So let's talk to storyteller Clark Foraker. Clark, what'd you find out today? I know you talked to some local zoos here.
Yeah, that article in Germany is absolutely crazy, right? I mean, I just could not believe it when I read it. And I talked to 5 zoos across the country, major urban zoos, along with SeaWorld, and the organization that sort of helps all of these zoos in times like this. And here's the good news. They all kind of agree that the article is crazy, and they say right now the zoo animals across the country are doing just fine. Of all the zoos I talked to, I did get this statement from the Zoo Miami, one of the zookeepers there. He told me, "I can assure you that the animals' health and safety will not be compromised at Zoo Miami, and that euthanasia or feeding our animals to other animals as a result of the pandemic has never even entered our minds. We are not facing, nor would we consider any of those desperate measures. All of our animals are receiving the same quality care each and every day since we've been closed, and we see no scenario where that care will change." Good news, right? Well, they did tell me that zoos, of course, rely on guests and admission tickets from those guests. They say right now they are experiencing financial hardship. They think that some of the stimulus money will be able to help those zoos. I also talked to the zoo in Chicago, and one of the directors there says they started preparing for the pandemic weeks ago.
We began making preparations back in February, knowing this was coming, and part of those preparations were stockpiling food and things like that, and materials and supplies like everybody else. You know, toilet paper disappeared out there, right? And so things like masks and gloves, and then in our food side, our commissary side for our animal population, you know, we made sure that we always have enough food available to last at least 8 weeks.
Pretty good planning, right? Well, what has changed at a lot of the zoos around the country is how the zookeepers and folks who interact with animals are handling that interaction. He told me they have PPE on hands, especially when interacting with primates. Those masks and gloves now required at all times. I also spoke to the organization that helps all of these zoos around the country. They also said they thought this article was just kind of bonkers, and that if things got severely worse here in the U.S., that they would help organize zoos helping each other to make sure all the animals are going to be just fine. Guys?
Thanks, Clark. I hope it stays that way. I guess it is contingent on how long this pandemic lasts here in the country. Over to you, Ashley.
All right, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Clark. So maybe you didn't know this. Today is National Portfolio Day. Basically, what that means is creatives are encouraged to post some of their work on social media to get followers, but also to get job opportunities. So Nick and I selfishly thought, let's use this opportunity to add to our portfolios, get some pictures taken. But of course, social distancing made that nearly impossible. The good news for us, we had a friend in Palm Beach, Florida, who actually found a unique way to do photo shoots without being in the same room. His name is Kareem Virgo. We have him here with us. Now, Kareem, we unfortunately have to reveal the pictures that you took. I say unfortunately because you know that I hate taking pictures, but they turned out great. But first, I want to ask you, how did you come up with this idea? Explain how it works.
Well, my wife actually brought the idea to me while I was editing, and she said, "Hey, why don't you take photos of people via FaceTime?" And at first, I said, "What?" I didn't really understand what she was saying, but my wife is kind of notorious for taking pictures of people via FaceTime. I said, "Okay, let's do it." And I tested it on two of my friends the next day. And at first they thought it was a joke. And then when they actually saw the pictures and they saw us edit them, they were pretty much blown away. And they actually had so much fun during the shoot. So credit to my wife for the idea.
Hey, Kareem, I know there's certain challenges, when you're doing a photo shoot with somebody in person, but what are some challenges you face using this method? You're not used to it. You're a photographer with a camera. What are some unique challenges you faced doing these FaceTime photo shoots?
Right. A couple of things we ran into, connection. So now we make sure we tell people prior to the shoot, make sure you're in a good area for a good signal. And I'm not holding the camera, so I have to tell them to hold the camera a certain way to position them to get the best angle that I can see in my head. So those things, and actually editing the photos is a different experience because the quality and the resolution of the photos is a little different. So I have to go in and kind of see how I can make it look the best.
Very, very interesting.
Okay,
Ashley,
so Kareem, I don't want us to lose. Yeah, I don't want us to lose time, so we got to do this. Kareem, we have my pictures first. So we have a before and after. We have like the raw FaceTime screenshot, and then we have the edits that you did. So I don't know if you can tell that I don't like taking pictures. I feel like they turned out pretty good, actually. I feel like I was kind of skeptical like your friends, but they look like real pictures to me. But, Nick decided to show out and be Beyonce. So Nick, please show us what you did.
It's all I know. All I know is Beyonce.
Please.
Here are my photos. Here I am. Beautiful lighting. Thank you, Kareem. God, that is so embarrassing. I'm so good looking. Oh, man.
Not to toot your own horn.
Thank you, Kareem.
Appreciate it, guys.
Kareem, for the photo shoots and the creativity. And thank you to your wife for the amazing idea. Ashley, that was our first show. We got to wrap it up. What did you think?
Woo. I'm shaking it off right now. It was like the first day jitters. It was like our first day of school, but I thought it was really cool. I'm excited to keep doing it.
Me too. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, if not, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We're on all the socials as well. From Ashley and I, thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow.